15th, 2025, December 15th, 2025. What a weekend, folks. It's a tough weekend, wasn't it? We have a couple of Americans killed in Syria. I think they were at the National Guard out of Iowa, a contractor or two as well. We're going to ask Adia Miramati and Annie Cyrus about that. We, of course, had the slaughter of innocent people at a Hanukkah celebration on the beach there in Australia by two guys, a father and a son team, jihadis who apparently were from Pakistan. We're going to deal with that. We're going to have on with us tonight J. Michael Waller, the senior analyst, one of the senior analysts there at National Security Council, National Security. What's the name of his organization, Logan? The National Center for Security Policy. Thank you. An analyst for them. Center for Security Policy. We're going to talk to him about Venezuela, about Russia and Ukraine. And did you see the video of a submarine being blown up off the Black Sea? One of Russia's submarines blown up by Ukraine. Shocking video footage we'll bring you tonight. Get his analysis of that war and where things are going there and so much more. So Adia, Annie, J. Michael Waller, and then I recorded an interview the other night that I want to bring you now in a few minutes from Bill Federer on propaganda. All the fighting, Candace Owen, Tucker Carlson on one side and then the folks on the other side. Could it be this is part of a psychological operation? Could it be that there are enemies, foreign and domestic, encouraging this kind of thing so that the coalition of the America First coalition, the MAGA movement, would collapse as we go into the midterms next year? Let's talk about propaganda and color revolution with Bill Federer tonight. And then I think we have a couple new tours. Aaron, our reporter on the ground in Israel, bringing us a couple new tours tonight. We'll bring those to you. So we got a lot to get to. Is that everything, Logan? Did I get it all? Yeah. So we had the shooting at Brown University, too. 2 students killed. I think one of them a 19-year-old Republican leader, a young lady. They're still looking for the suspect. He shouted something. I wonder what he could have shouted. What do you guys think? Why won't the authorities tell us what he shouted? I think we all know what he probably shouted and why they won't tell us, right? And then we had the Americans killed in Syria, Brown University attack, Australia, people killed on the beach there, Bondi Beach. And then many of us yesterday saw the very sad news of Rob Reiner and his wife being stabbed. Some say their throats were slit, but I can only tell you what I'm reading in the press. And when I heard that, I said this at 1 o'clock today. I said, I thought, wow, that's personal. Somebody was really angry. That sounds like a personal crime, a crime of passion and person that would know them. They're reporting things about the one son who, I guess, according again to reports, he has not been named officially, but I read reports he's been questioned. I don't know if he's been arrested or not, Logan. Has he? Has he? Oh, has he been booked in charge? You want to check on that? Because we're always trying to be careful here. Throw it up there on the screen if you see it. But then the talk went to the son. And the son apparently had made a movie with his dad about his life. Can you throw that on the screen? And so apparently he was in and out of rehab. I read 18 times. I don't know if that's true or not. And as soon as I heard it, I thought, oh, look, I don't agree with Rob Reiner on a lot of things politically. But I thought about the fact that you have a mom and a dad, and if they were indeed murdered by their own child, who they apparently tried to help, and the dad even producing a film about the son's life and trying to help the family. I said on radio today, we're in a place in America now where almost every family, it's either a child or you have a grandchild or you have a niece or a nephew or you have a brother or a sister that is touched by mental illness, by substance abuse, be it alcohol or drugs. This is so common and it touches pretty much every family now to some degree. Even if it's not your immediate family, it touches people that are in your extended family, right? And so my heart went out to them thinking about this mom and dad who I don't agree with on some things politically for sure. And I know that he hasn't been a big fan of President Trump and vice versa and all that. But I thought to myself, I'm going to set that aside and look at this as a mom and a dad and them trying to rescue their child. And I felt bad for them. I felt horrible for everybody involved. But the mom and dad to die in that manner, when I think all the indications are, tried to help your son, rescue your son, whether it is Rob Reiner's son arrested. What was the headline? Rob Reiner's son arrested on murder charges after director and his wife found dead at their LA home. Here's a little video. Here's a little video of Rob Reiner and his son.
Times you know, the parent is, your main job is to keep your child safe. So I would do anything.
We didn't bond a lot as a kid. Like, he really liked baseball. I like basketball, and he could watch that with my brother, but baseball. But I just, when I saw him do that, and it was something that I'm interested in, I was like, wow, like, he really knows a lot. And like, it made me feel closer to him and be like, yeah.
You're like, wow, my dad's Rob Reiner.
I never had thought about it. And then,
yeah, it didn't cross your mind, right?
Never.
No.
Never watched A Few Good Men. Didn't see that one.
No.
What was the most difficult part about working together for the two of you?
It wasn't very tough. I mean, it was a pretty nice experience for me. I don't really think it was like tough at all.
Really?
I mean, of course it was a little bit, but
I mean, we did get into fights over things, but ultimately it forced us to make the film better. I mean, you know, we get into issues, and I would see, you know, the whole process for me, I can just speak for myself, it did make me understand him a lot more, and I think it made me a better father. Hopefully it did.
I think the bonding came not from the story itself, but from the fact that we were working on a movie together.
Your kid is going.
Look, politics aside, religion aside, what parent, what grandparent doesn't look at that and feel sorry for that family and have compassion for Rob Reiner and his wife, to think that that's how their last seconds of their life was spent, involving reportedly now their own son. And even looking at that young man, I have compassion for him. I don't drink. I'm not legalistic. I just choose not to drink. Because I've seen what it has done to too many people. And I'll agree with Donald Trump when he says, if you don't start drinking, you never have to worry about having a problem with it. But when you know people that have, and I think all of us know people that have, whether it's alcohol or drugs, it ends up becoming something that is so hard once they become addicted to escape. And and the people I have talked to that have struggled with it, and some people, of course, have been very vocal about their addiction and have tried to use their problems to help other people. And one of the common themes they all say, many of them, is you would never want this addiction. You would never wish this upon anyone because it consumes you. And then, of course, there are the chemical changes and the physiological changes and the psychological issues. And I can't help but watch that video and feel sorry for that young man. I don't like what he did. I abhor what he did to his parents. But if he's really the one that did it and that's him sitting there, then yet at the same time, I see his eyes and I think, you feel horrific for people that have turned down that road. So I think as Christians, first and foremost, as conservatives, we need to be very compassionate, and we need to be guarded in what we say and how we say it. We can argue and fight and debate politics, and even I can fight and debate worldview, apologetics, biblical things with people, but I cannot allow those issues to cause me to lose compassion or to dehumanize people or to have compassion for them. I did see a clip over the weekend where Piers Morgan asked Rob Reiner about the murder of Charlie Kirk. And here's how he responded.
When you first heard about the murder of Charlie Kirk, what was your immediate gut reaction to it?
Well, horror, absolute horror. And I unfortunately saw the video of it, and it's beyond belief what happened to him, and that should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution to solving problems. And I felt like what his wife said at the service, that the memorial they had, was exactly right. And totally, I believe. I'm Jewish, but I believe in the teachings of Jesus, and I believe in doing to others, and I believe in forgiveness. And what she said to me was beautiful and absolutely, she forgave his assassin, and I think that is admirable.
Yeah. Well, there's a perfect example, setting politics aside, and he did and said the right thing. And yet I see people on social media today not saying and doing the right thing. And above all, the president of the United States should not be putting out comments like this. People can say, oh, well, he's been treated so horrible. You know the things Rob Reiner said about him? You know what? There's a lot of people that Trump has hired and put around him, including his own vice president, that said some pretty horrific things about him at one time. He apparently put that behind him to work together as VP or other people around him in his administration. Can we not put aside things that have been said about you when someone is murdered? This was not presidential. I said this on radio today. This made me very sad. Sad for the country, sad for the presidency, sad for us as Americans, that we cannot put aside political and very heated political and personal debates when someone is murdered, which you just saw Rob Reiner do about Charlie Kirk. But here's what President Trump put out, and I wish he would pull it. He said, a very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director, comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and uncurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. What is he trying to say here? Due to the anger, his anger toward Trump is why he died? He goes on to say he was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace, end quote. That's not presidential. He turns it back to himself. It's not, I'm shocked Melania hasn't made him taken it down, apologize. But we're headed into the midterms. I'm watching the feedback on this. It's not good. People have said, look, I voted for this guy 3 times. This is really not acceptable. Folks, President Trump is very successful. He's a billionaire. He's been president now twice. He's succeeded in so many areas. I don't know why he can't accept his success and not punch down at people, particularly, though, people in this kind of situation. It's not presidential. It's not good for the party. It's not good for the country, regardless of party. And it's not good for the decorum of the country. And it's certainly not going to help his party headed into the midterms. But from a human standpoint, it's just not right. And Paul called into my broadcast today. I think he's from Michigan. He says, I love your show. I listen to your show all the time. I agree with you on so much, but I'm going to disagree this time because President Trump has been attacked by so many people. Well, you're right, Paul. He has been attacked by a lot of people. But 2 wrongs don't make a right. And he is the president. He's almost 80 years old. At this point, he needs to understand he has to be an example to the young people, above all, for the decorum that needs to be set in our country. I just think, again, we go to the issue of, can we not disagree with people and still be friendly? Can we not disagree with people politically and religiously and still be happy warriors and gracious people? But as Christians, don't we have the obligation as Christians to be tenderhearted? You know, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. I've had people in this radio audience and TV audience that have called into the show saying, I hated your program. My wife would listen to you every day. I told her to stop listening to you. Stop listening to that guy. Now he says, I don't miss one of your shows. How do we win these people over? By just continuing to be as best we can. And sometimes it's hard for me as well to be happy warriors. Fight political, biblical worldview, apologetics, economics, fight it to the tooth. But never lose the heart of a father or a grandfather to show compassion to another human being, particularly at their death and that of their spouse, and reportedly at the hand of their own child. Particularly in this day and age when so many young people and young adults and adults are struggling with psychological issues, massive spiritual issues, some of them demonic issues, substance abuse issues. Many families have it very, very hard. Many families have it the hardest at Christmas time because there's something about the holidays that sure seems to bring out sometimes the worst in people. A lot of high expectations and they're not met. A lot of people this time of the year are alone. Some of them are alone because their families have fallen apart, marriages have fallen apart over substance abuse and things. And so I would think at this time of the year, above all else, the president of the United States could put out a tweet that would, or a social media post that would have caused a lot of people on the left to go, oh, wow, that was a class act, President Trump. Because I know that Rob Reiner has said some horrible things. I've seen a few things that he put out about the president and his followers. But that was a class act, Mr. President. Good for you. I've said it again, and I'll say it over and over. The dehumanizing of each other in this country is going to be one of our greatest downfalls as a nation. When you start dehumanizing each other, that's when the violence really kicks in and kicks into overdrive. And eventually you end up in, well, not only societal unrest, but eventually civil war, which never ends well for a country. So I was disturbed by that. I was disturbed by several things that happened this weekend. The Brown University shooting, the death of the Americans in Syria, the Rob Reiner and his wife's situation, and then, of course, Australia. What a weekend, huh? Other than that, it was great. So let's try, particularly if we claim to be Christians, to manifest that in social media. That's all. I'm not perfect. I struggle. There are times I've done interviews and then I go back and say, Logan, edit that interview, cut that out. So I'm not on a soapbox. I understand passion runs high. But I think a lot of us as parents and grandparents can understand the need for incredible compassion with the murder of Rob Reiner and his wife, reportedly by their own son, because he still has living children. And I guess the daughter lived across the street and was one that found him. And I've seen pictures of her and recent, I guess as of November 29th, pictures of her and her dad out in the ocean swimming. And I said to my wife, can you imagine that poor daughter walking in and finding her mom and dad like, and she doesn't need to be reading about conservatives and MAGA people or whatever you want to call yourself. Not that anyone in this audience would do this, but she doesn't need to read about people on social media taking part in this, much less she needs to read the president talk like this. This is not how you win people over. Would Ronald Reagan do this? People say, well, he's not Ronald Reagan. Well, maybe it's time, President Trump. You have his picture hanging in your Oval Office, and I thank you for that. But maybe it's time to ask yourself, what would Ronald Reagan do? And for us as Christians, even higher, way higher than that, what would Jesus do? We'll be right back. Do you appreciate all the free programming we produce here at Worldview Tube? Well, if you do, we need your partnership now. If you're already supporting us, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider doing so? We have to have a big November and December end of the year giving. Please go here right now to this website, worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. You can give through credit card. You can give through PayPal. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find our phone number. Simply use that phone number by leaving a voicemail for Melissa or texting her, and my wife will get back with you and help you make your contribution over the phone. We send out tax receipts with our EIN number, well, the first week of February of each year. We, again, have to have a very big November and December as we get ready for pushing out more Christian Worldview programming for 2026. So thank you for going now to worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Joining me now is Annie Cyrus and Hadia Miramati. Guys, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
All right, let's start out with the terrorist attack in Australia. Of course, Logan's got a bunch of B-roll footage we can bring. Horrific. Dealt with it today at 1 o'clock with Aaron, our reporter on the ground in Israel. He has family members that live in Australia. The two guys, Pakistani is what we're hearing now. The son apparently had been on their radar. Australia has opened up their borders, bringing all these Islamists. Here's what you get. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Then the police response, 15, 20 minutes without even responding. Takes a private citizen who gets shot twice to do the job of the cops, because we're in an era where we have, we don't have qualified cops. We're largely pushing aside the good guys and ridiculing them and calling them racist and all kinds of things if they're good cops, so we can hire a bunch of community organizers. Same problems in Australia as we have here in America. The whole thing is just disgusting. There was a police station reportedly within eyesight of this incident. How we have a Hanukkah by the sea event where you have a couple structures that give the high ground, how this was allowed to happen, or they don't have their own private security or more government security. It just seemed like the whole thing at many levels is troubling. Now, I'm not blaming anything on the Jews, but I am certainly concerned that there wasn't thought by somebody that this is not a good location. There's just too much high ground. But this guy, the son, he's rattling off his shots so fast. He clearly had training somewhere. Now we're hearing reports, whether they're true or not, I don't know, but I'm reading reports that the two had just been over in the Philippines. So were they over there getting training or what? I don't know. What's the latest you know? Let's go with you first, Annie. What are you hearing?
I want to emphasize on something. This was not the first time we faced a father-son, Pakistani father-son duet of attack. If you remember, Brandon, I came on your show because nobody else was covering it. In Utah, days after Charlie Kirk was murdered, there was a bomb that malfunctioned and didn't go poof. And behind that bombing in Utah were the father and son from Pakistan. I think that's important to mention. Why is it important to mention? A lot of people keep saying, close the border, don't let people in. A lot of these sons are the first generation. Their parents came from Pakistan and Syria and Afghanistan and Iran. They were born here, like the Utah attack, that we were blessed that Lord didn't let that bomb go off. But with the son and father in Australia, you look, the whole scene just seems so bizarre. The police is there, but they might have as well not be there. The people, again, not blaming, but do they never train their mindset that this kind of thing is happening every day? Do they not understand we're getting closer to Hanukkah, we're getting closer to Christmas? They step up. They're always a step up their game when it comes to our holidays. That's just given. How could even the man, and I have to be very careful here because I received some backlash saying this. I am not saying this because the bystander hero was a Muslim from Syria. No, I'm not saying that he should have done better. I'm saying that, okay, you had the bravery to grab the rifle from the father. Why did you put the rifle by the tree and put your arm up? What was that about? That was just about 20-25 seconds for the father to make his way up to the bridge next to the son, grab the other rifle and start shooting again. Why did you put yourself in danger? That all comes back from mindset. Oh, I got the gun. I don't need to do anything. No, you got the gun. You aim at the person and you shoot him. I'm not saying kill him. Kneecap him. Something.
Do we know if that guy is Muslim? Because we're getting reports that
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He is a
He's a
Muslim.
Muslim
Maronite.
from Syria.
Wait. What did
He's
you
a
just,
Muslim.
Maronite? What is that?
I heard he was a Lebanese Maronite and owned a store, but that's not correct.
No, that's what
No,
Aaron...
he is from Syria. He's from Syria. The mother and father both did the interview from the hospital bed. They are very proud, and they literally said, we are proud of him. So is our entire village in Syria.
Okay, so he was a Muslim, but he obviously wasn't a practicing Islam, right? Would he have been considered a hypocrite, Annie?
He would definitely, as it is, and that's the thing, again, did he put down the rifle and not shoot the attacker for not putting more heat on himself for being a Muslim who killed a Muslim? Because that's unforgivable. Absolutely. If you're a Muslim and kill a Muslim who's killing Kafirs, you have to pay with your blood. It's my guess. I'm not saying that's why he didn't.
But are you thinking
But
that
yes.
he was like Sharam Hadian's dad, a beer-drinking, pork-eating Muslim, meaning he wasn't an Islamist? Is this guy likely just, hey, he was born into the Muslim family, but he's not a practicing Muslim?
He might be, he's not activated. He doesn't practice jihad yet.
What are your
By
thoughts?
choice of-
What are your thoughts, Hadia?
Yeah, whatever terminology you want to use, whether he's normatively, culturally Muslim, but not a jihadist, not an Islamist. This is actually, I saw conflicting reports. I heard he was Maronite, but I didn't know that his family had been interviewed. But another caveat I wanted to add is that, because of all the backlash for people who do take actions into their own hand, like remember our own subway incident where the gentleman intervened and then he got prosecuted. There could be this fear that he was going to get retaliated against if he took any action other than disarm him. But I also want to say that we have to look at, and I presume we're going to look at all these events in totality. We've talked about this rush of, soft target attacks, and we keep talking about them in isolated examples per country. And I think we really should be looking at this as a global intifada, a global attack against the West. And as these incidences pop off every day, we have to realize we are in a war of sorts. And when are people going to start to prepare, as Annie was mentioning, preparing and having the mindset and situational awareness to realize that that's the state that we're in, tragically and horribly. But citizens need to start taking responsibility for their safety, because law enforcement, I have a 10-minute video where I hear sirens in the background and there's no response and no police presence.
Well, here's a clip by one guy about that very fact. Here we go.
Simple as that. 20 minutes was 4 policemen there. Nobody give fire back. Nothing.
20 minutes, no fire back, nothing.
They are froze. Like for it looked like 20 minutes. And they shoot. The guy change magazine. I look at him all the time. I was doing my babies under me, and I look at that, and it's just rifle and a pistol, and just shoot. And the other one was under. They start to come close to the audience. I think one of the people took his rifle and shoot him. That's one of them. That's what I saw.
So, basically, look, he's reloading. Why not take advantage of the fact he's reloading? But no, they didn't.
And the excuse is going to be casualties, too many people, the crowd was moving, we didn't want to shoot innocent people. That's going to be the excuse behind it.
Well, when it comes to casualties, here we go. Here are the cops wasting their time on this piece of trash.
Rescue him.
Why are we wasting our time trying to save this piece of trash? Those cops should be out there helping the victims, not this piece of garbage. Does anyone disagree with that?
No.
I do not, but I know what's going to be the excuse behind that too. They wanted to capture one of them at least alive to get information to see what was their motive.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Because we don't know the motive, right?
Because we don't know
what the
exactly
motive is.
right. We don't know the motive. And they weren't apparently too concerned about it. The son had already been investigated and cleared, according to some reports we're reading. So isn't it interesting?
Well, he wasn't cleared. He wasn't cleared, but he wasn't pushed on the list of monitoring. But the father was clear enough to actually have license for his firearm. All the firearms that were used that day were licensed. The father had the license to own every single one of them. How does that happen?
And they have stricter gun rules than we do. They actually have to list a purpose behind why they need the firearm to get them. And he had all of those permits.
All right. So you think this is a bigger? Is this just? I don't believe in lone wolves anyway. But do you think this is a pattern we're going to start seeing more and more? What was that face for? Why are you making that face, Annie?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did my face speak louder than my mouth again?
Yeah.
I mean, there is absolutely zero lone wolf scenario.
Yeah, I don't believe in lone wolves. I don't believe in lone wolves. And so what I'm asking is this a global pattern? Has someone said something in the press or on social media that was the trigger, that was the go statement? Is there
December
anything?
1998, Osama bin Laden. December 1998, Osama bin Laden issued a fatwa to kill the Kafirs during their sacred holiday. Is that enough for the reason every Hanukkah and Christmas we get bloodshed?
And now we're reading that maybe in LA, where you're near, I think, Hadia, they foiled a terrorist attack out there from multiple locations for New Year's Eve, right?
Yes. And so the larger point that I'm hoping to make from each of these terrorist attacks, if we include Brown, Australia, the foiled one in LA, and even Syria less so, that's a little more isolated, is that, again, I go back to this statement about NVEs. These are nihilistic violent extremism, as the FBI is describing. They are a merger of the left and the Islamists. And you see all over X, people are like, he wasn't a Muslim, he's a leftist, he's a white guy. We have to stop with the boxes because the boxes don't matter. These groups have merged. And so the group that they're holding publicly accountable for the LA terror attacks is the Turtle Liberation Front, the Turtle Island Liberation Front. And it's a fascinating group because they talk about the Christian Judeo heritage of the United States being a colonizing influence that they want to rid the Turtle Island of, but basically have taken on the language of the Palestinian movement, of the Islamist movement in the Middle East, merging these ideas with this globalize the Intifada, but not just for Palestine. They're saying all the countries that have been supposedly colonized by the Judeo-Christian tradition. So they say it very publicly that who they consider to be the world's colonizers are the Judeo-Christian religions.
Okay, so where do you think we're headed with this on say America? What first of all, what can you tell us about the LA cases, Hadia, where you live?
Well, like I'm saying, is that these guys, they're going to put them in this far left box and say these are just leftist radicals, but they're not. If you look at and I send you a picture of the girl with the T-shirt on because they claim to be. They start off as this indigenous movement claiming to be Indians. So look at the T-shirt. So look at the woman, and you wouldn't consider her a Muslim. She doesn't have to be a Muslim, but the T-shirt says solidarity from Turtle Island to Palestine. And so this movement has very clear, I looked up a bunch of their social media posts. They're part of this electronic intifada where they're basically merging these two networks together. And what happens is a lot of the jihadi groups are infiltrating these anarchist, far leftist groups and inserting this language, participating in joint rallies, participating in social media posts, showing up at their teach-ins to merge these two forces. So we have the soft side that we've already seen on campuses where they're merging these ideas. Now we're seeing it in the violent space. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see. I still, despite everything that's out there, believe that's what Tyler Robinson was a part of, Charlie Kirk's killer. And I think we're just going to see a lot more of this. And it's going to deceive the public because everybody's looking at, oh, wait, no, this is white, this guy's far left, this guy's Muslim, and it's one group. We're going to continue to see that.
Let's get to Syria. What do you tell our audience about? We have the contractors, National Guard, I think out of Iowa. murdered in Syria. Annie?
Yes, we had 2 army soldiers killed, 1 American translator killed, and 3 army soldiers wounded. This was supposedly a coordination to take out few ISIS members in Syria. The information and intel came from Syrian military. I need to be very specific here for your audience. When they say Syrian military, I need you to understand these are al-Shara's jihadist soldiers that we just removed from terrorist list. This isn't some country's military. Just that's important. However, unfortunately, that intel turned into more of a trap where our soldiers, 2 of them were killed, a translator were killed, and 3 of them were wounded because we have Syria under control. And for some reason, the ISIS that many, including right-wing anti-Sharia movement leaders, talked about, ISIS is done. We got rid of ISIS. This narrative was started in 2019, and then 2020, they're like, ISIS is done. Somehow ISIS is back. It's in Syria, and I don't know why we see the need, or Pete Hegseth sees the need to send our soldiers to die for Syria.
And Hadia?
So what is going to continue to be a problem, very different than what we were talking about with this Syrian young man being the hero in Australia, is 2 different kinds of Muslims. In the Syrian case, between ISIS and Shara's forces, they are the same kind of Muslim. So they're both jihadists. They both believe in very strict interpretations of Sharia. They both want to advance the Islamic cause. So how is Shara going to govern when everybody on his force has a brother, cousin, nephew that is uncontrollable in his pursuit of jihad? The country is filled with lawlessness, and I don't understand how he's going to, at least for the America's purposes, make a distinction between these guys. And he's going to progressively look like he can't control his population, and that hopefully we will look for another leader, because he's claimed he has the street cred to manage the radicals, but he won't. He won't be able to manage them because they have a jihadist mindset, and there's only so many people he's going to be able to bribe to listen to him.
Can I be respectfully brutal here for a minute?
Sure.
Why is it our business to find a different leader? Why is Syria our business? Yeah. When are we going to give up? It is none of our business. Our soldiers, they fight, they make the ultimate sacrifice for freedoms and borders of America. I am tired. From Iraq to Afghanistan to Libya to Syria, they can have listen, Hamas was picked by people of Palestine. It is none of our business what happens to Palestinians if they exist, because they don't. Same thing applies to Syria. Even if Iran's going to take over Syria, again, we should have never saved the mullah's life. But okay, fine. I don't think we should even entertain that al-Shara is going to fail, then we're going to find a different leaders who's going to figure it out. No, we need to step aside, back away, let them figure it out. How many more of our soldiers are going to pay with their blood fighting somebody else's fight?
I definitely appreciate that sentiment, but that's just not the way our diplomacy apparatus works. We
should make it work that way.
We stick our fingers everywhere. I mean, I totally agree with you. We shouldn't have had soldiers on the ground, but I think they had this false level of security that Shara is our guy. He's going to protect us. So they know better now. But but
who gave them that false sense of security? I believe that would be Pete Hegseth.
Oh,
no, yeah. Pete Hegseth bought into that. If we say he didn't know and he believed al-Shara, which I don't believe that, but okay. Trump told him to believe him, so somebody needs to be held accountable. That's the bare minimum. But Pete Hegseth sent our soldiers there under false sense of security. Now 2 of them are dead, 3 of them are wounded. So At least he needs to be held accountable. And now we know, let's withdraw our troops.
I get the sentiment, but I find it unlikely to believe the U.S. will entirely step out of the Middle East. I mean, it's too valuable to the United States to have stability in the Middle East to do nothing. So it is likely that we will continue to interfere. I wish we would get it right and interfere in the right way, but we historically don't. And there are factions in our government or people on the outside, the isolationists who prefer we do nothing anywhere. I just don't think that that's really plausible.
Well, I wouldn't think that what I'm saying is sentiment. I would say, considering as of right now, we the people still hold the power over our government, if it would get off our couches and our kumbaya parties and our false hope, we can absolutely change the diplomacy they're using. Diplomacy is not part of our constitution. It is not a written law. It can be changed at any given moment. So I think what I'm proposing is a solution, but majority of Americans refuse to see it as a solution because they are used to the broken system. We just mourn the loss of our young generation, move on to the next time that our government gets our soldiers killed.
Let's switch gears real quick before we have to let Hadia go. I think you're on a time schedule crunch tonight. How about Brown University? I guess the FBI has now released a new picture tonight. Brown University shooter. I guess he got off about 40 rounds into a classroom where the kids were studying for a pre-exam. 2 killed. I think one is a Republican leader, student leader, 19, I think. We're told that the individual shouted something, but they're not telling us what. Was it Free Palestine? Was it Allah Akbar? Was it Merry Christmas? Happy Hanukkah? What'd they shout? Anybody want to guess?
Well, Laura Loomer put out that she has reports that it was Allahu Akbar.
Of course it was.
So,
what else would it be?
Yeah. Well, it's curious to me because is this guy, again, one of these radical leftists? Is he going to shout Palestine? Is he going to shout colonization? Is he going to shout the Jews? Like, who knows? Because these guys don't have a common MO anymore. They're this amalgamation of anarchists. And so it's entirely unclear, again, my reference to why we shouldn't have boxes. We maybe just one giant box of these crazies and how we're going to handle it.
Well, now they're, I guess, announcing some money for finding this guy. Let's see here.
Now we'll hear from Colonel Oscar Perez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for being here again. Here we are once again to provide you some of the highlights and the progress that the Providence Police Department, along with several agencies, have gone together and stepped up to come up to this. I want to remind you that this is a very active investigation, very complex investigation, and it's the dedicated work of the men and women of the Providence Police Department, the Detective Division, the Community Response Team, the Special Response Team. It's all hands on deck. And on top of it all, you have the state police who's assisting us and every other federal partner that has been in this building for several hours. And I want to commend and applaud them for the work that they have done. And that includes the FBI, HSI, ATF, the IRS, the marshals, and several other agencies, analysts that are here. So it's pretty active because we want to make sure, as the governor stated, as the mayor stated, to make sure that we identify this individual and bring him to justice.
All right. And I guess they're offering $500,000 leading to the individual's arrest. Any comments on this? We'll let you guys go.
I will repeat what I've been repeating for a while. Train yourself through your mind, your body. Sure. Don't think it happened somewhere else. It will never happen to you. With the speed we're going, it's going to happen to every single neighborhood, either a mall, university, school, church, synagogue, you name it. You have to genuinely be prepared. And as my pastor said last Sunday at church, remember, we do have the armor of the God. But if you're not putting it on, there is no use for it.
It's a good comment. Hadia?
Absolutely agree. We have to have situational awareness. Everybody has to realize the threat that we're under, including students. We should go back to the whole issue of this no gun zones, and whether campuses are gun-free campuses is basically creating yourself as a target. And so we should be having armed officers on our college campuses. There should be more security on the doors. Apparently, this place that they were able to enter did not have security. That's what some of the reports say. And better equip the students with run, hide, fight, whatever strategy they're supposed to use in order to protect themselves, because this is a 21st century reality. Everybody needs to be prepared.
It's $50,000 reward. I misspoke, not 500,000, 50,000. Resurrectministry.com, resurrectministry.com, and Annie is liveuptofreedom.com, liveuptofreedom.com, and lutfstudio.com to get that last minute Christmas gift, personally and handmade by Annie. She's wearing a new one tonight, the red one. You made that, right, Annie?
Yes, I did.
There you go. All right, guys, as always, thank you. And unfortunately, I guess we'll be seeing you guys again soon to report on another terrorist attack, because that seems to be the trend now. And going into the end of the year, I think we're going to see more of these before the year is over.
Do we have about 35 seconds for me to just add something? I just want to thank you for the plug, but I want to say something. As I decided until we close the year, most of the week I'm going to write on my Substack about history. And today, on December 15th, 1791, our first 10 amendments became the law. The Bill of Rights became the law. And I just want to remind my fellow Americans, though it's a tragic day, we feel like we can't even feel anymore after the last 3 days. Remember, those rights there for a reason. I broke it down on my Substack, but most of you know why they're there. They weren't just placed there by our founding fathers so we could live a free life. They were also assigned to every single one of us from there on to be protected. The only way to protect our rights is to constantly and every day practice our rights.
Agreed.
Just wanted to put this out there.
Agreed. Liveuptofreedom.com, liveuptofreedom.substack.com, and resurrectministry.com. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Brennan.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Merry Christmas. We'll be talking to you, I'm sure,
Merry
before
Christmas.
then, but Merry Christmas. All right, guys, we'll be right back after this short break.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate undersink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System, because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
Joining me now is J. Michael Waller. He is the senior analyst for strategy at the Center for Security Policy. He is the author also of the book, Big Intel, How the CIA and FBI Went from Cold War Heroes to Deep State Villains. That was his book last year. He joins us now. Mr. Waller, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Good to join you again.
Great to have you here with us. Let's go right away to breaking news. And I want to get to Australia and the tragedy there, but I want to get to this one. Breaking news here. Ukraine opens new chapter in the history of naval warfare by blowing up a submarine in the Russian seaport. However you say that name there, but I'm sure you can say it. But here we go. Watch the video. This is incredible. What is, I mean, do you know how this went down, and what does it tell us?
Well, it looks like it went down really well for Ukraine. It's a really admirable operation. Wow. Imagine being able to penetrate a heavily fortified naval seaport like that and strike the exact submarine with all those other warships around.
And this has happened now in the last few hours. How do you think Russia is going to respond to this?
Well, they haven't responded the way I would have anticipated them responding to most of the attacks on them. They've really been I don't know, kind of paralyzed in their or incapable in their responses. But when you consider the other vessels they took out, the Russia's Black Sea Fleet flagship, they took out the naval facilities in Crimea, power systems, the 1/3 of Russia's long-range strategic aircraft. I mean, Ukraine has done an amazing job, and Russia really hasn't hit back the way one would expect.
And why do you think that is? Because they have the Satan II and all that technology.
They have it, but it's proof that, I mean, the whole invasion of Ukraine was a stupid thing from Putin's part, because had he just waited longer, all of Europe and the Biden administration would have caved in and given them everything they wanted, and the Russians could have just marched in. That's what we thought would happen. But Putin went and did the dumb thing and invaded, and in doing so, they didn't think to bring enough fuel trucks to accompany their armored convoys in the invasion force. So they had a whole column stopped up right away, and then they found that the military was so corrupt they were buying cheap Chinese-made tires for their heavy equipment and all sorts of other stuff that caused things to break down. And then over a while, the soldiers were selling the fuel to the locals, and then you had all the expensive equipment just sitting there free for the Ukrainians to take. So it was really a completely bungled operation from a military perspective on the Russian side from the start. And the Ukrainians have put up a really admirable fight.
How do you think this ends? I see Germany is now saying, look, we're going to go to conscription. It seems like every time I turn around, some NATO leader, European leader is talking about war and preparing for war and sons dying on the battlefield. Where's all this going?
Well, you can look at it a whole lot of ways. First of all, the Europeans they pulled us into this by being the forces to provoke the Biden administration, to goad the Biden administration to do something and pull the United States in when the Biden administration was asleep at the switch. So nobody has come up with a strategy. The Ukrainians haven't, the NATO hasn't, the European Union hasn't, the United States hasn't, on what are our end goals in Ukraine and how are we going to get there. So Trump comes in inheriting this complete mess, and he says there's no way that we can win this thing. Let's just quit while we're ahead, or quit before we get behind, and put an end to this. But you see, he had to beat up the Europeans to pull their weight.
Let's move to the issue of Australia. We have a reporter on the ground in Israel that works for us. And of course, we reported on that today at 1 o'clock Central. But I want to come to the issue with you, because I know you have talked an awful lot and warned an awful lot about Islam. I guess Australia just had their October 7th, if you will. I had a book come out just a couple months ago entitled America's October 7th. What's the subtitle of that book, Logan? The Hamas's U.S. network exposed, or something like that. Sadly, I expect to see, and we've been saying since October 7, 2023, that we expect to see something like that in America. And now apparently the FBI has foiled a New Year's Eve attack in multiple locations in Los Angeles. Talk to us about what went down in Australia. The police, they're being wildly and rightly, I think, criticized for being, impotent. There's a police station. I see a map within eyesight of this where it took place. Took 15 to 20 minutes for them to respond. It ended up taking a civilian, risking his life, getting shot to disarm one guy. We have been, pro-police traditionally in our country, we have been, but after Black Lives Matter and cultural Marxism, we've been saying an interfaith dialogue with Muslim Brotherhood, police departments, sheriff departments. We've been saying openly, we've run off a lot of the good guys. We are left with impotent police departments, many of them that cannot rightly respond to this. And now we see this in Australia. Speak to all this, please, and where we're going.
Well, there's a lot there. To have this happen so near a police station with a 20-minute response, and have a local civilian take down the one of the gunmen, it's an amazing thing. I mean, you don't expect police to be there all the time, but they shouldn't have a long response rate like that. You could tell that the man who took out the first gunman with his bare hands wasn't experienced in firearms, so he couldn't use that to defend himself later when he was getting shot at. And now you have the Australian government coming out and saying, we're going to ban guns even further. This was a case of foreign extremists, known foreign extremists, being allowed in Australia, being allowed to stay, to live off the Australian taxpayer, and then to come in and show, you saw the man on the bridge, he was highly trained, bolt action rifle, popping off 4 shots in 5 seconds. That's amazing skill right there. Somebody trained him.
Yeah, indeed. And now we're finding out that the son and father are from Pakistan. We're finding out that the son was on the radar of the authorities and apparently was cleared a few years ago. I mean, it almost seems like always these guys were on the radar of the authorities. I mean, hardly a shooting happens that the FBI in our country, oh yeah, they were on our radar. Well, really? Well, why didn't you do something? Some over there in Australia are asking if there was some kind of stand down order to not respond for 15 to 20 minutes. Are you kidding me?
Well, the Australian security services are more woke than the CIA and the FBI. Australia is much further down the line and down the path in wokeness than the United States was, let alone is. And there's no reversal in Australia like there is there. So you have a whole mentality now in all of law enforcement that you cannot move at certain targets the way you normally would, or you can't watch them the way you normally could. But just think, you have, a Hanukkah celebration that was scheduled long in advance with a high concentration of Jewish people celebrating their holiday, and there's not adequate security to prevent the known wolves, the people they already know about, from coming in and shooting the place up. It's obscene.
It is obscene, particularly when you look at the structures from that bridge to the building there on the grounds that would give them the high ground, which is, of course, what any security expert would immediately be looking at is the high ground, so like shooting fish in a barrel. And yet this thing went down the way it did, and there weren't security to the degree that obviously there should have been, or even the event being held right there at that location where people can have the high ground. Let's talk about America. How concerned are you, Mr. Waller, that we're going to see our own October 7th style event? And maybe we just had a major terrorist attack for New Year's Eve foiled by the authorities in the Trump administration.
Yeah, I'm extremely concerned because just think, if you're a foreign enemy of our country and you want to harm us, destroy us, wouldn't you take advantage of the open borders policy and the wokeness that causes people to look the other way? You'd be a fool not to. You'd be a traitor to your cause not to take advantage of that, to come here and shoot us up. So I would fully expect a number of mass shootings and terrorist attacks to take place in our country, if not immediately, certainly in the future. And the FBI's and the other authorities' bust of this network in Los Angeles shows these things are being planned.
How concerned are you now about China? We keep reading about China getting into our power grid. They have chips on our transformers. I mean, every time we turn around, we're reading about more and more of what China has to bring our country down. And when we hear a lot of talk about China and tough talk, but now we're going to send NVIDIA chips to China. It seems as though at some level we have a kind of a schizophrenic foreign policy on China. Do we not?
I agree. It's insane to be sending NVIDIA chips to the Chinese Communist Party so they can build their artificial intelligence. And it's not just DeepSeek, the chat GPT type stuff. This is the Chinese communists are developing machines that will be able to think on their own, according to a moral code that's loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. Imagine that. So they lead the world in autonomous drones. They lead the world in building, humanoid, robotic, what they call super soldiers. And they're doing this with our technology.
What do you make about Venezuela? We've been reporting since, I think, 2008, 2009. You go back in our history about potential missiles in northern Venezuela, Caracas, 1,264 miles as the crow flies to Miami. We've talked about flights from Iran, Tehran going in there for years. Then we got Pompeo, as CIA director, telling Chris Wallace on Fox News during Trump's first term that you got Hezbollah there and you've got Russia there and Iran there. Of course, China's there. Is this blowing up of these little boats really about the drug war? Which, if it is, that's fine. I'm not for these drugs coming in here and killing our people. But is this more about maybe that Margarita Island where Hezbollah is being trained? Is this more about our enemies that have an alliance together militarily and economically in our backyard?
Yeah, you just nailed it right there. This is what the Monroe Doctrine was for over 200 years ago, when President James Monroe created our foreign policy doctrine that we're not going to intervene in America's free republics of the Americas, but any colonial power that returns or comes in is a threat to the United States. And that was our policy until really John F. Kennedy caved in on Cuba, but really it was maintained until the Obama administration formally renounced it. So it's not just Venezuela being a nasty regime, which it is. There's plenty of nasty regimes in Latin American history. This is a regime that has been attacking us, emptying our prisons and insane asylums to come here and to colonize us and to attack and our people and to bog down our law enforcement and to stymie us from people from living normal lives here in America, in addition to the drug trafficking, in addition to allowing Hezbollah to use our maritime southern border as a staging area. I mean, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has a drone factory on a Venezuelan military base. So the Venezuelan regime has allowed most of our foreign enemies to come and congregate and use that territory for some kind of plan against us.
Mm. Well, now we see that today, President Trump says he's signing an executive order to classify fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. Here's a quick clip from the Oval Office.
Deadly fentanyl flooding into our country. With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of. So we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. But before I sign the...
All right, so that, I don't know what that means for the drug runners here in America to get caught with it. It's got to be some serious stiff penalties now.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, before it was just an illegal drug.
Right.
Now it's a weapon. So if it's defined as a weapon, that means you can take military action abroad. We have the legal right to attack anyone smuggling that in here, anyone smuggling the precursor chemicals in here, and taking out anyone in a foreign country. It can be done. We can do it by drone or however else, who is part of a Chinese Communist Party network to attack us with weapons of mass destruction, as the president has just defined it. So it's not just illegal drug smuggling anymore. He's changed the whole debate on drug trafficking.
His appointment was canceled.
That's my fault on my end. Sorry about that, guys. I saw an article, posted an article today. I'm trying to find it now. I posted an article today about one of these groups developing super fast drones. I can't remember what. Here we go. Iran. Here you go. Iran introduces stealthy, high-speed kamikaze drone. Okay. We, on this broadcast, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, played video footage that the IRGC put out that looked like it could have been on our border between Mexico and America, could have been down the border between Mexico and Texas, Mexico and Arizona. But it was them sending off drones. And they came in and the drones were shooting what looked to be like almost like a machine guns at a crowd of people, but it was cardboard cutouts. And we started talking about that then. Now the technology is moving so quickly. I am so concerned about potential mass casualty event coming out of Mexico, since we know the connection between the cartels and the Islamists, the red-green axis, etc. How concerned are you about these drone attacks on our border coming over from Mexico?
We have no defense against them.
Right.
We have no way to detect them. And remember, you've got the Iranian drone factory in Venezuela. We don't know what kind of drones they're making there. It could be these, but and that's our southern maritime border. So it's not just coming over the land border. It could be coming by sea also. And this could be what some of these fast drug boats are bringing in. We just don't know.
And then add the Club K car to it, right? The Club K cargo systems. We did a whole documentary on that. Those Club K, the lids open up, 4 silos. And we have no way of stopping that off of our coast. And I don't know if you've seen the, Logan, maybe we can bring it up real quick. Have you seen the cover of The Economist magazine? Came out about a month ago. 2026 ahead. It was talking about what's coming in 2026 ahead, okay? Many things many things on the cover of The Economist magazine, which we all know is one of the premier globalist magazines. You see the dollar collapsing and dollars spilling off of a chart. So it looks like they're talking about maybe a dollar collapse. I don't know. Silver's headed to $65 an ounce today. You know, gold's well up over $4,300 an ounce. But the other thing you see, Mr. Waller, is a cargo container ship with missiles coming off of them. And they're getting if you zoom in on that, you'll also see a satellite command. So a satellite signal is going down to the cargo ship there to the left of the 250th birthday cake of America. You got missiles coming off, getting a signal from a satellite. This is what is in my documentary in 2018 on the Club K cargo system. This is right on the cover of The Economist magazine. Your thoughts?
Well, that tells a story that we've been warning about for years, and we were told that it was a conspiracy theory. So it's another conspiracy theory come true. We had a scenario where a shipping container on a freighter that coming in from China in the port of Baltimore with missiles inside the container that could decapitate the United States government within minutes, and we would have no way of detecting it or countering it.
Yeah, and yet we're conspiracy theorists. Here we are. You know, I don't know what your family does, because I think you probably live outside the D.C. area, right?
I moved out of the D.C. area.
Oh, well, good for you. That's a smart move. My friend, the late Dr. Peter Pry, we used to produce his weekly radio show, and I produced
Great guy.
Absolutely, miss him. He produced his TV show from this very desk, and he moved out. He said, I'm getting outside the blast zone, and he moved way on out. But he and I had so many conversations over, and of course, you probably remember when he was working for Kurt Weldon up on the Hill, and Kurt Weldon and Dan Burton put together the mock-up of a briefcase of a nuclear suitcase. And that was our buddy Peter Vincent Pry that mocked that up for him. I think it's in the Spy Museum there in D.C. with his name down there, Peter Pry. And we had dinner one night here in town. He was here filming. We went out to dinner. He was talking to me and a couple other people at the table that I had brought with us about how much you would need, that you could put it into a backpack even, and then just set it around in different places in the nation's capital, and what it could do and how concerned he was. And on one of the videos we've played of Dan Burton and Congressman Weldon at the time, they were saying, look, one of these devices could take out 8 square blocks. I am so shocked we haven't seen something like that yet. Aren't you?
Yeah, it's by the grace of God and maybe some good intelligence that we never knew about.
Right.
Or the perpetrators have decided now is not yet the time.
And isn't that at the end of the day what it all comes down to? They're waiting on the perfect time, the perfect day.
Yeah.
I don't know, our family here, what your family does, but we are prepared for the power to go down. We're prepared for disruption in just-in-time inventory. Because we realize how vulnerable our country is. And one of my friends who used to be for many years in leadership at the National Reconnaissance Office, he said, the problem, Brandon, is the borders have been open for so long, we don't know who's here. So they have prepared the battlefield, and we have no idea how to respond because we don't know who's here. And in some cases, we don't know if they haven't already placed these cargo container ships around the country. These containers could be all over, pre-positioned. We would have no way at this point of finding them.
No, there's shipping containers all over the place and in everybody's backyard and stop at any truck stop. But imagine if you have these missiles on trucks and they're stopping at truck stops in different strategic parts of the country all at about the same time. The drivers might not even know what they're carrying, and it's all remote control launches, but the trucks are all pre-positioned so that there would be no way to intercept these missiles.
Let's, in our final moments together, let's go to your book. You wrote a book in 2024 last year on the deep state and the FBI. It was entitled Big Intel, How the CIA and FBI Went from Cold War Heroes to Deep State Villains. How do you think the Trump administration is doing when it comes to cleaning out the deep state from the FBI and CIA?
CIA, I don't see any changes at all. Our CIA director, he's a good man, but he's Ratcliffe, but he's not a transformative person. You don't see any leaks against him, so he's not offending any of the powers that be on the inside. With the FBI, I'm going to publicly reserve judgment for now.
What other concerns do you want to alert our American citizens to tonight?
Well, first, like the man in Australia who grabbed that gunman, it's up to every citizen. First, you can't take care of others until you take care of yourself. You have to be prepared for the worst circumstances. It's all just common sense, and then you have to figure out, what would the enemies of our country do? What would I do if I was the enemy? And then you sort of take what we call a red team approach. You look at it from the eyes of the bad guys. How would they exploit us? Could it be exploiting the border situation to infiltrate people in to destroy us from within? Think of it. There were the equivalent of 6 army divisions of military-aged Chinese males who were seen coming over the border. 60,000. With similar haircuts, with similar clothing, with similar gear. And they were just allowed through. 6 army division equivalents. We don't know who they are.
And they're still here, right?
They haven't been deported. We have seen no indication that they have been.
And again, I guess we always ask the question, what are they waiting for? I guess we don't know, do we?
We don't know. We don't know precisely what they're doing. They could be part of a research and development program at a major software or hardware company, for all we know. They could be just having normal jobs at a restaurant or a donut shop or someplace, waiting to be activated at a certain point in time. We just don't know. But the convenient thing about infiltrating people into a country and pre-positioning them and their gear in advance is they can prepare for attacks to take down our grid, to take down, our supply chains, to take down our leadership, anything else. And it's not traceable back to the country responsible. So it's not like firing a missile where we have an early warning system and we know who's firing with us and we have a few minutes either to defend against it or retaliate against it. You don't have that with the case of saboteurs inside this country.
You sure don't. Our friend Gordon Chang, who was just here in town speaking at our national conference, and he's a regular here, said that, Americans should be prepared to fight the next war on our soil. And he has said that the Chinese Communist Party will alert themselves and they'll poison water, they'll let off bombs, and they will kill a lot of people. How confident do you feel about that prediction by our friend Gordon Chang?
Well, he has a good track record, and I've been following him for years, and I know him, and he's a fine analyst. He's always been he's always taken a risk in his analysis, like Peter Pry did. But he's been proven right time and time and time and time again when everyone else was saying he was wrong. So the key to defeating us, if you're a foreign adversary, is not to fight us ship for ship or missile to missile, but get us where we're weak. To defeat us without having to fight us. That's been Chinese military teaching for 5,000 years.
It kind of seems like that's what's going on when it comes to all the division in the MAGA America First movement. You got Candace saying what Candace Owens is saying. You've got the murder of Charlie Kirk. You got groups pitted against each other. You got the rise of this character, Nick Fuentes. You got some very strange interviews being done by Tucker Carlson, not pushing back against some of these people. And the movement is completely divided now, right? And you have to wonder, is anyone a foreign enemy of any kind stirring up this controversy so that the country is already divided? Country, as we know, has been divided for a long time, but now we have the movement divided. And of course, we're headed up to the midterms. And it seems like that's the strategy, is to get us all demoralized. Wasn't it your Bezmenov that talked about demoralized, destabilized chaos and then the new norm? And it seems like the destabilization and the chaos is everywhere. And every day, I'm sure you do. I mean, this is your job. This is my job. Every day we get up 7 days a week looking to see what's going on in America and around the world and trying to read what's happening. And I hate to say it, but I just keep waiting for another massive event in the country to destabilize us. And I don't know if the powers that be, the people behind this, our enemies, are foreign and domestic, have decided it's a terrorist attack, or if they've decided it's something that they can use to control us more with more fear, like a pandemic again, a bioweapon. Because, boy, the country sure closed up and people went to mask and taking these COVID shots and everything else. It seems to me that nothing scares people. And Hollywood sure has prepared everybody with all the outbreak movies and contagion movies. Man, that to me seems like the greatest way to scare the living daylights out of people is bioweapons. So in conclusion, Mr. Walter, what keeps you up at night?
You know, there is so much to worry about that if you spend all your time worrying, you'd go crazy. The thing is to look for solutions. So that's what keeps me motivated, is to search for these solutions, and they're niche solutions. They're not all big money, big industry solutions. And the upsetting part of it is that because there's no money involved in a lot of the solutions, you don't have lobbies for them. You don't have senior officials trying to make their next career on them. And there's no training for thinking this way in most cases. So a lot of the solutions are very simple. Trump has taken some of those solutions on a big scale, though, with the mass deportations. That has to be done. He's entirely correct to be doing exactly what he's doing. It's just a pity that we don't have the resources to do it even faster. He's gone to China and said, knock off the fentanyl. We're viewing it as a military threat. He's shown the Venezuelan regime and the cartel running that regime and the whole rest of the world, if you're going to be smuggling the stuff into our country, we're going to finish you off. So he's been doing that. A lot of his policies have stymied even his biggest supporters. You're wondering what on earth is he doing? Why is he so erratic? Part of that is Trump being Trump, but part of it is the threats against us are so various, and they're so new that Trump is keeping the whole world unstable, wondering what he's going to do to them if they continue. So in some ways, I think he's playing a mind game, which that doesn't cost anything to do, and it's going to be good for us. But if you look at, say, Venezuela and capturing that tanker, that wasn't a Venezuelan tanker. That was a tanker owned by a Russian Ukrainian loyal to the Kremlin who is taking Venezuelan and Iranian oil and selling it to China, so the proceeds can go back to fund the Venezuelan regime, the Cuban communists, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and Hezbollah. So it's a lot more than just seizing a Venezuela tanker. So what keeps me up at night? Thinking of solutions that will matter to the U.S. And so what we've been able to do at the Center for Security Policy is to contribute on a small scale to some of these very niche solutions that the administration's been using.
Great answer. Final question, made me think of this while you're talking. Do you believe the president should be doing more Oval Office primetime addresses to the American people and explaining to them some of the things you just said right then about that oil tanker, what it was doing, who they are? I just wonder if the president isn't educating the American people. You know, I'm a teacher by nature, as far as I like to teach. I think, you know, you're an author, you're an analyst. My guess is you like to teach. You go in and you analyze stuff and then you teach it to people who are in the know. You know, maybe in maybe even in closed door intel briefings, but you're trying to teach them something. And so I'm always looking and thinking, is the president being the chief teacher of the American people? Ronald Reagan used to do that quite well, and he did a lot of Oval Office addresses. And I just fear sometimes that this president isn't doing enough to read the teleprompter, stay on the prompter, don't go off the prompter, just deliver the message written by your team to brief the American people to the internal and external threats facing us and prepare us to be ready. Just like that civilian took out that terrorist shooter in Australia, we need more Americans that are prepared, that are, you know, if you can afford to go out and prep for 3 months, 6 months worth of food and medicine and extra gear, you know, stitches and sutures and things, you should do that for your family, because we're in a very dangerous time and our critical infrastructures are at risk. And the more of you that are ready, the less stress it's going to put on your local government, first responders, but then you're going to be able to help other people and be leaders in your community and help the senior citizen that's a veteran, help the lady that's a widow. Be a cheerleader for people being independent, you know, and rugged individualists. I just sometimes wish he would explain to us the without, you know, of course he can declassify what he wants, but I just wish he at times would explain to the American people the massive existential threats we're facing as a country, not to panic us, but so we can prepare and come out of it stronger and win.
Right, just to prepare us. But that's not who Donald Trump is. He likes speaking off the cuff. That's who he is, and that's how he is. If he did now, you know, he's got his own alternate media outlet with Truth Social, and he's on X and on a lot of other different platforms, and he uses the bully pulpit really well to suit the type of person he is. But Reagan, who was a more scripted guy as an actor, But he had, what, 300 of his weekly radio addresses. And the purpose of that was to circumvent the major media and to force them to report on things exactly the way he articulated them. And you've just nailed it. President Trump needs to do that too. And if not him, other people speaking on his behalf to come out and explain to the public exactly what's going on in a calm, logical, organized way. Because right now, with so many people confused about, well, why is he calling Chinese domination of artificial intelligence an existential threat to America while he's agreeing to sell NVIDIA chips to the Chinese Communist Party? It makes no sense. What is the reasoning for it? So he has to come out and really explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, America is a great place in many regards, no doubt about it. And Ronald Reagan concluded his first inaugural address with talking about Americans and solving our problems. And he said, after all, we can do this because, after all, we are Americans. And I just think it's time to rally, particularly with our 250th birthday coming up, to rally around that informed patriotism, acknowledging the threats, foreign and domestic, and ask Americans to rise to the occasion, that we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people, that we are to give consent. The government isn't our master. We are to be its master. And we, the people, should be an active citizenry working in concert with those that we have given agency to on our behalf. And yet I feel like so much of the time, Americans are sitting here, mother may I, and with the wrong mentality that we should be working as business owners, as parents, as police officers, as school teachers, as pastors, as rabbis, in concert with our local and state and federal officials who answer to us. But we should be there to work in concert together to solve these problems, and then to be ready to be mobilized individually, independently, as we see needed in our communities. Because I think, unfortunately, we are going to see events like October 7th in America. I think we're going to see things like this happen in Australia. I think the real potential for massive problems with our critical infrastructure is very, very real. But I also think it's something we can get through as Americans together if we're prepared and organized and networking with each other. But I just don't see the civil, I guess we're kind of going back to World War II, the kind of civil commands, where you would have someone in your area that knew what was going on and organize people. Because like Reagan said, after all, we're Americans. We can get through pretty much anything if we're told the truth and told how to prepare and what's expected of us when these things happen. Closing comment?
Well, you nailed it there, but this was at a time when people trusted their authorities. They trusted the government. They had civil discourse amongst themselves. And now we're talking, you hear all this talk about civil war and, oh, good, somebody was murdered and isn't that great? And can't wait for the rest of them to get, all this really sick stuff that you don't have people coming together like they used to before. And even with COVID, where the public did come together, we soon realized we're being scammed and somebody's covering up for the perpetrators of all of this against us. So we become a very low trust environment. But there is something, you mentioned the 250th anniversary of America. Only a third of the American public supported the American Revolution. A third of it was loyal to the crown, and a third of it just didn't care and wanted to be left alone. So of the third that was actually fighting, it was dispersed all over the place, and you had just a few men who got together to start that Continental Congress at huge personal expense, but they assumed the risk on their own. They were going to lose their property, and they were all going to hang if they got cut. So, but they went and did it anyway. So this is a great time to go back and think of those people and that minority of the country that actually fought for our freedom, and know that we can do this again.
Wow, what a great way to end the great interview here. Look at this. Follow him on social media. He's a senior analyst for strategy at Center for Security Policy. He's also the author of Big Tech, How the CIA and FBI Went from Cold War Heroes to Deep State Villains. Follow him there on X, at J. Michael Waller, at J. Michael Waller. Mr. Waller, thank you for making time for us tonight.
It's great being with you again, Brandon.
Look forward to having you back. J. Michael Waller checking in. Again, follow him on X, at J. Michael Waller. So over the weekend, we had an open house here. We'll show you some pictures and video in our Christmas house to house that my wife and I do every year. We want to do those more often, but we're just so busy. My poor wife, she has been so busy dealing with end of the year donations and customer support. But somehow she managed to pull off a beautiful open house. We had over 45 people come through on Saturday. afternoon into the evening. Started at around 3 o'clock and ended around 9:15. And we had a lot of people come through, friends in the area, some of the guys in the control room, of course, other people we work with in the area, and a lot of neighbors, And we had a great time. Melissa did a beautiful job. People kept commenting, your home is so gorgeous. I'm like, well, it's all Melissa. It's all Melissa. She does a very good job. And you know what I love about it? She does it very inexpensively. Thank you, Home Goods or / Marshalls, whatever you call it. I think it's both, right? She does an amazing job. I think I showed you guys a couple of years ago the beautiful dining room table, chairs, and what do you call it? China hutch. From the chairs were made in the Philippines. The tables from England, and the hutch is from England. I would think today you're looking at $25,000, $30,000. And I think I told you guys that we showed it on a house to house about 2-3 years ago. She got it for $500. The table, the chairs, and the hutch, $500. She is a deal maker. She is very good at what she does. And someone said to me, is your wife an interior decorator? I said, well, yes and no. She did all this, and she has worked with people. We've shown some of the projects she's done, houses being completely gutted and remodeled that she has picked and done. So, yeah, she has done this, and she does a great job. She loves it. But a lot of great comments for Melissa this weekend on her beautiful decorating at home. And then people were asking, well, did you have this catered? Did you have this catered? I'm like, no, she did not have this catered. They're like, when would you have time to do this? I'm like, that's a very good question. When did she have time to do all that between the running the organization with us and all that else that goes on? But we'll show you some of those pictures and our Christmas house to house. But it was 45 plus people came through. A great evening, great time was had by all. In fact, we had such a good time. Melissa said, I don't want to wait till next year. We should do that again. I said, I know. I think we should do one in the spring. We'll do one in the spring and do that again. That was a lot of fun. Did you have fun, Logan? Logan's asleep in the control room. Oh, he's doing customer service. He's producing the show and doing customer support at the same time. Wow. You might be asking, why is everybody doing so much customer support? Well, let me tell you right here why. Here's one reason right here. They go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. This is one reason why they're so busy. Logan, particularly, he helps a lot of you with the vault. Some of you sometimes need help getting logged into the vault. Well, let me just plug it right now, because I just finished last night doing Why I'm a Christian Zionist part 4, the final part, and that'll be turned into a book. And then it'll be put into the vault. You will not have to buy the book. It'll be in there. My book on Hamas is in there. My book on siege, sabotage, all in there. My book on Revelation, the study guide and commentary on the book of Revelation, is coming in the new year. All of that will be in the vault. You will not have to buy it. It'll be in the vault. And if you want to buy this for someone as a gift, just go there to worldviewtube.com/vault. Be sure to check this box right here. Is this a gift? If it is, check that box. Okay. This would make a great gift for someone. It is the gift that gives all year long, the vault. We get so many positive comments from people about the vault. 35 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, 22 years of our keynote worldview weekends. They're all archived there, folks. So please consider joining, if not for yourself, for someone else. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Hey, Dolly, come here for a second. Don't go anywhere. Dolly, you were a big hit this weekend at the open house. Do you want to come up here and say hi to everybody real quick? Come here. You're not going to come here, are you? What are you? Come here. Come on up. Come on. Why are you being so shy tonight? Come on. She's not going to do it. Anyway, you were a big hit. You were a big hit at the open house. A lot of people got to see Dolly. She even got gifts. People brought gifts to Dolly. They brought her balls and bones and different gifts. So she got a few gifts as well. You know, one of the sweetest things about this weekend's open house, my piano player, Donna, who you see me in concert with, we brought Donna in to play the piano, which she did for many hours, played Christmas hymns and carols at the piano while people were visiting. And a lot of people said, wow, a live piano player. Thank you, Dolly. A live piano player. Yep, we sure did. And so there were some little kids that live in the neighborhood that came with their parents. And there's 3 of them. And then another lady brought 3 children. And you know, these kids they were all in elementary school. I think the oldest was 12. One was 11, and then 7, down from there. I think 7 is about the youngest, maybe. And those kids ended up going over to Donna, the piano player, and talking to her. And then the next thing I know is I hear these beautiful voices of these kids singing Christmas carols. Oh, Holy Night, Oh, Little Town of Bethlehem. And everybody, that was hearing it and realized what was going on was talking about it, how cute it was, adorable it was, how innocent it was. And it was the highlight of the evening. So I said, hey, there is hope for the future. Look at these 7, 8, well, really between the ages of 7 and 12. Look at these kids going in there wanting to sing Christmas carols with the piano player, who they do not know, but Donna's very, very sweet lady and loved it. And she just acted like a typical choir director and said, you guys want to sing a carol? And sure they did. And they sang several of them. I wish I had filmed it because it was absolutely adorable. People were commenting on it. But anyway, other than that, Dolly was a big hit. I think the kids were the biggest hit with their carols with the piano player. But other than that, Dolly was a big hit. All right. Let's see what else. Don't forget, go back here to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Don't forget about Bella Grace and Numi, Gatatana, all of it's there. They make great Christmas gifts. Don't forget about that. Worldview Talk, where you get the solar generators, the satellite phone, the bulletproof backpacks. I'm telling you, folks, after what happened at Brown University, what happened in Australia, I have one of these bulletproof backpacks. These are not small backpacks. They are pretty good sized backpacks to cover a big chunk of your torso, right? And certainly for a child, they would work very well. I really, really urge you guys to look into these at worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. They have Faraday pouches that will knock down EMF and EMP. But again, just from a strategic standpoint of them having the ability to stop bullets, that guy's going to show you how this bag was shot at and it captured the bullets. So in this day and age, I think everybody should have these. You're going out to the mall. Many of you are carrying backpacks anyway. Carry one that's bulletproof. This makes a great Christmas gift for any of the kids in your life, any of them going to college, going to elementary school, high school, community college, whatever. This is smart for any adult. Instead of carrying a briefcase, carry this big bulletproof backpack. And it, again, can double as a great backpack, but bulletproof protection as well. This is one of the things you'll find at worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. All right, check out all of our sponsors and help keep us going, folks. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. All right, I pre-recorded an interview the other day with Bill Federer on propaganda. And could the fighting in the MAGA crowd be orchestrated to create division and to cause a collapse of the movement of conservatives and patriots and constitutionalists and America First people heading into the midterms? We talked about it under the history of propaganda. Watch this. Joining me now is Bill Federer. Bill, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, Brandon.
Let's talk a little bit about propaganda. Maybe get into a little bit about the real meaning of Christmas, but let's talk about propaganda. You're working on a new book on propaganda. You know, I have my Brainwashing Part 3 coming out in the new year, and then I'll release my book on brainwashing. So you and I have a lot we could talk about. But tell me about your new book on propaganda and how you think it relates, particularly with all the, I don't know, should we use the word civil war going on now within MAGA and within the America First movement and within the podcast world? You know, Candace Owens and so many others, Tucker Carlson. How does all this fit with the topic of propaganda? Any idea?
Yeah, well, several threads come together. The first is marketing of products in the 1800s was Sears catalog and Singer sewing machine, and they would list every detail and you'd make an informed purchase. But in the early 1900s, a guy named Edward Bernays invented magazine ads where you would say nothing about a product. You would just make it look like everybody's using it and keeping up with the Joneses. And so he said, women go into a department store and think they're buying shoes. They're not. The shoes were picked out for them by the marketing executive who paid the actors to put them on, paid the photographer to take the pictures, paid the magazines to publish it. And the women see it in the magazines and figure, well, everybody must be using it as famous actresses, and then they buy the shoes. Crisco is another example. Nobody knew what was in Crisco. It's cottonseed oil. In the deep south, they'd harvest cotton and have left over these seeds that they'd mush into industrial seed oil that they'd use in machinery. Nobody ate it, but somebody had the idea of bleaching it, put in these containers. And so you go from knowing everything about a Singer sewing machine to nothing about a product, but you're ingesting it because you think everybody else is using it. And so Edward Bernays pushed smoking cigarettes, pushed women smoking cigarettes, pushed all these different things because he's the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And Freud's a psychoanalyst that discovered we are social creatures. We want to be accepted. We do not want to be rejected. Simple, but the whole thing is based around that. And so it was to create the impression that you think everybody else is using something and you'll want to buy it. So the whole fashion industry is based on this. You see other people wear it, you see it advertised, and then pretty soon you want to wear it. And then people see you wearing it and they want to wear it. And and so Joseph Goebbels in Germany reads Edward Bernays' book, and Edward Bernays changed the name. He wrote a book called Propaganda in 1928. And we're a government from the consent of the governed. But what if you could engineer consent of the governed? And so he wrote a book called The Engineering of Consent. So if you can sway people to buy a product, you can sway people to buy an ideology, to buy a political platform. And so Joseph Goebbels, Germany, said, hey, people will believe something if they think other people believe it. So he would get 100,000 people together in a stadium, and they would give the Hitler salute in the front. It would work its way back through the crowd and like a wave at a football game. And as it got closer to you, you'd feel pressured to give it. And people would see you giving it, and they'd feel pressured to give it. And everybody'd leave the stadium thinking, well, I guess everybody's in on it because they were all giving the Hitler salute. And so it manipulated their impression of what everybody else was believing, and then they would feel pressured to take the same beliefs. Then you see it injected into schools, and so they call it social emotional learning or behavior modification, where the teacher would celebrate somebody if they come out as trans or some alternative agenda, and then they shame in front of the group, the class, somebody that holds old traditional values. And so they embarrass them. And so all the other kids see that. And none of them want to be embarrassed, and so they'll all want to gravitate toward being accepted by the teacher. And so they'll adopt these alternative sexual agendas. And it's very effective. So the idea of marketing of products. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the Cold War. And now I'll pause here if you want to inject anything.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. So it's basically group consensus. What do we call it? FOMO, the fear of missing out today, is that what they call it. So people are afraid they're missing out, right? They want to be they want to be part of the junior high cool pizza eating table. And that, I don't want to sound elitist or anything, but the older I get, the more I realize just how immature the average American adult is. And I tell the guys in the control room that all the time. I'm like, you guys, I know you're in your early 20s and you look at these people in their 40s and 50s and 60s and think, oh, they're adults. They're so smart. They're so mature. I said, wait till you get to be my age. You'll realize that most of the people that you have living around you are just as immature as they were in junior high. And they're 2 and 3 and 4 marriages and multiple bankruptcies and all kinds of troubles in their life. Proves they're still the immature kids. They're just older. And I think this is why this kind of marketing in part works and works increasingly well in a social media driven world. We have a nation of infantile adults. You want to jump on board and agree with me or disagree?
No, you're right. It's this manipulation of your perception and wanting to fit in with a group so bad. So that's the one thing. And then we look at the color revolutions. And so after World War II, countries in Europe wanted to be free, and the Soviets didn't like that. And so they would send KGB agents into countries to do what's called critical theory, where you simply observe all the groups. It takes a while, right? Ethnic groups, Bosnians, Croats, and Serbs, religious groups, Sunni, Shia, Orthodox, economic groups, racial groups, doesn't matter. And you would classify them as victims or oppressors, haves and have-nots. And so once you identify all the groups, you would look for the influencers of that group. You would identify these influencers and realize that if you could influence that one person, you could influence all the followers. And whether this is a Hollywood actress, whether this is a music person or an athlete or a politician. And so they would have these campaigns targeting the influencers. Remember, Biden invited the TikTok influencers to the White House to push his Ukraine war efforts. And it's like, why would you have these TikTok? Well, they're influencers. And so the Soviet tactic is you would befriend them. In the 1950s in Hollywood, they would invite the movie producers and actresses to cocktail parties and then befriend them. And then they would identify all the friends of this influencer and they would target the friends. And if they could get the friend to introduce them to the influencer, then they would have more credibility with the influencer. I mean, this is a very well thought out game plan. And then they would begin to seed the influencer with the talking points that they wanted them to spread through their group. The purpose of it is division. And so you want a radical left and a radical right. You would identify, and so you would influence them to spread these narratives. You would cause the groups in the country to fight each other. You would have them classified as the haves and the have-nots, the oppressed and the oppressors. And so once you got them to fight each other, you wanted there to be bloodshed. Why? Because then you have mass emotion. And once the public is in a state of mass emotion, it is real easy to channel that. People want to blame somebody for the killing, right? They're itching. Who do I blame? Who do I blame for this killing? And so then they would use the influencers to steer the blame any way they wanted. And they would usually steer the blame for the new leader of the country. And his popularity would fall because people would believe the influencers. And as the leader's popularity fell, then they could do a coup or a rigged election and nobody would question it because by this time they didn't like the leader and they would replace the leader with a Soviet puppet. And then the violence would stop, not realizing that it was the Soviets behind the violence in the first place. There'd be this honeymoon period of, but then when the dust settles, people would realize we just gave up our free country. And now we're satellites of the Soviet Union. We're behind the Iron Curtain. And so these tactics were used and country by country fell. And Truman does nothing because he thinks the United Nations that he helped form will bring world peace. But the next president is Eisenhower. And now we focus on Egypt. And in the 1950s, there's a King Fuad, and he is sort of playing games. He's going to side with the West. He's going to side with the Soviet Union, but he becomes unpopular in his country. And so there's a bunch of people in the military led by Gamal Nasser that wants to take him out. And the CIA helps it. It's called Project FF. And they overthrow him. And so now the CIA is doing the same thing that the KGB is doing. And we have Iran. So a little history on Iran. After World War I, they get a secular leader who wants to give women freedom and let them wear fashions and let them get educated. And he's very pro-West in Iran. He's the Shah. Well, when World War II starts, the Shah did not kick out Germans. And so Britain and the Soviet Union arrange a coup and overthrow the Shah and replace him with a guy named Mossadegh. And Mossadegh plays ball for a while, but then during the Cold War, Mossadegh begins to flirt with siding with the Soviet Union. And he nationalizes the oil industry in Iran. Why is that important? In 1908, Britain formed the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. And you know it better as BP. And so when Mossadegh nationalizes it, it's basically taken over Britain's oil fields. And so Britain has an oil shortage. And so they appealed to Eisenhower for help, and Eisenhower approves Project Ajax. And this is where the Secretary of State, Allen Dulles, sends Kermit Roosevelt Jr., the grandson of Teddy Roosevelt, over to Tehran, and he does the KGB thing in reverse. He divides the country into groups, and then he recruits mobsters and gangsters and escalates it into violence, and they attack mosques, and then they co-opt the media, the influencers, with bribes or threats to begin to blame Mossadegh for all the problems. And when the people believe it enough, they did a coup and they put Mossadegh under house arrest, locked him away for the rest of his life, and replaced him with the Shah's son. And then the CIA would do the same thing in different countries, and the KGB would do it in other countries. And so this is called the Cold War. These proxy wars in other countries, and the idea is that you would go in there and divide the country into groups, pit them against each other, and have this violence that could be blamed on the leader. And then when the people believed the lies, then the influencers, then they could replace the leader. Obama turned all that inward on America. So when Allen Dulles, the CIA, when this became public, mostly after the Bay of Pigs fiasco, and so Congress passed the Smith-Mundt Act, which forbade the government from creating media to be used on the American public. This propaganda, this wanting to sway the public in America to support these different agendas. And so everybody knew the CIA still did it just covertly, but then Obama brought it back, called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which gave his government the authority to create media to brainwash the American public, to sway them. And now we have the beginnings of Facebook. And then Obama used this for his Arab Spring. And all the social media followers and all the countries, and they would sway them to overthrow their pro-West leaders and replace them with Muslim Brotherhood people. And then Obama signed an executive order, 2015, using behavioral science insights for the benefit of the American people. And then you read it, and it's like trying to figure out the psychological decision-making process of the public and to sway it for the sake of national security, right? They're doing PSYOPs, psychological operations, on the American public. And then Obama signed the 2016 Countering Foreign Propaganda and Disinformation Act, which gave him the authority to decide what's disinformation, what's not, and to label all his political opponents as enemies. You know, Catholics that are pro-life, moms that speak out at school board meetings, right? They're the enemy. And the same way that Obama used the IRS and had Lois Lerner take this federal agency and turn it against conservatives, these different government agencies were now targeting conservatives. And so what was used, there's a book Michael Waller wrote called Big Intel, How Cold War Heroes Became Dupes of the Deep State. So during the Cold War, we had people using these tactics, but it was to keep a country from falling into the Soviet circle, right, to keep them free. So even though they were subversive, they were still had a good end. But Obama turned this inward on America. And then with the ability of governments to track people, and with AI, and now they do continual polling, continuously. They're releasing a story, and then they immediately know who's forwarding it to who and who's forwarding it to who. And then if somebody has a counter narrative, they try to figure out who's initiating this counter narrative and canceling them. And since it's all done online, it's really easy to do. And
so let me ask you, how do you see all this playing into the Civil War in MAGA, America First, Candace Owens? How does all that propaganda fit destroying a movement that had such potential to get us back on track, deal with the deep state, and return us to a constitutional republic.
Right. So midterms. The Republicans were on track to win the midterms. Charlie was motivating.
You're talking about midterms 2026.
Right. So Charlie was motivating young people in unprecedented ways. And I believe the deep state is somehow involved in his killing. And then, but we still have this huge block of conservative turning point people that are being motivated, and the Democrats are facing losing the midterms. And so they did a psyops. They targeted conservative influencers, people that are trusted by conservative, and they wanted to get people that could tap into the following that Charlie Kirk had. And so they looked at people and they would co-opt them the same way that they did with Hollywood producers during the 1950s, right? And so they would target these individuals and feed them stories, find out who influences the influencers, right? Their friends, and feed them stories. And then rather than do research and then say, okay, this is the conclusion of our research and release it, they do this stringing the country on. Well, now I think it's this person. No, I think it's this person. Now I think and the goal is what? The goal is to sow division. Sow division so that the energy of Charlie Kirk's following can be diffused into all kinds of other things. The anti-Semitism, anything. But the goal is to divide MAGA so that the Republicans will be demotivated and lose the midterms. And then once the Democrats can win the midterms and put in Hakeem Jeffries and start impeachment trials of Trump and start investigations, there'll be a million it'll kneecap the entire Trump agenda. And so when you study this, the influencers usually don't even know they've been co-opted. Their only thing is if they would sit back and say, we're going to do a year's worth of research and come up with our conclusion, and then we'll release it to the public. But to come up with every new thought and then get in front of a microphone and say it out, that is sowing division. And so division, the word devil means to divide. And so the devil's in heaven. He's sowing division in heaven, right? And it gets a third of the angels to follow him, and he's cast out. So then he's in the garden, and he sows division. And he gets Adam to blame Eve and Cain to kill Abel. And then he sows division with Abimelech, right? So Gideon defeats 100,000 Midianites, and his sons are ruling Israel. Well, he has an illegitimate son named Abimelech, and he goes to Shechem. And he says, is it better for you, the sons of Gideon, reign over you? Remember also that I am your flesh and your bone. And so he sows division, and he kills all the sons of Gideon. But this idea of sowing division, the British did it. 1714, they started a trading post in India, turned into a trading fort, turned into them giving guns to their allies, and guns to people that weren't their allies because they didn't want them buying guns from the Dutch and then having the Dutch get into India. So here the British are giving guns to both sides. And then they sort of sit back when the two sides fight each other, and they weaken each other. And then the British can conquer both of the weakened kingdoms real easy. And they did this again and again until they took over all of India. And so now we go to the American Revolution. And the Americans and the Indians had sort of reached an equilibrium after the French and Indian War. But the British come in, General Johnny Burgoyne, and he meets with the Mohawk Indians in New York, and he incites them to attack the Americans. So they're doing the same thing. They're coming in, they're sowing this division. It's mentioned in our Declaration as one of the 27 reasons that we were rebelling. It says, the king has excited domestic insurrection amongst us, right? By having the merciless savages of the frontier butcher, our settlements. And so you see this tactic. It happened again in the War of 1812. The British in Pensacola, Florida, went up to the Red Stick Creek Indians, And you know the pronunciation of red stick in French. It's Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge. Right? And so the British go to the Indians and promise them money for scalps. And so the Indians attack Fort Mims, Alabama. It's an American fort. And they capture it and they proceed to scalp 550 people because they want the scalps to bring to the British so they can get paid. And so these tactics went from that, to Machiavelli. I mean, Machiavelli lived in Italy 500 years ago, but his teaching spread. And so the Machiavelli idea is Italy was a bunch of city-states that always fought. And if one prince could control all of the city-states, it would bring peace. And so the ends was good. So the ends justifies the means. So if a prince wants to conquer Italy to stop the infighting, and he goes into a town and wants to conquer it, the people would hate him. But if the prince pays criminals to sow division, to smash windows, to set things on fire, the people will cry out for help, and the prince will come in and get rid of the very criminals he bribed to create all the crises. And everyone will praise the prince as a hero. And so it's good marketing. You create the need and fill it. You go around the back of the house, set it on fire, then you go on the front of the house, sell them a fire extinguisher, and they'll pay anything for it. But the idea is that you want to create a crisis. You want to create a division. And so how do you destroy a marriage? Sow division. How do you destroy a church? Sow division. How do you destroy a country? Sow division. And so when you have influencers sowing division, now you look at it, you can channel, once their people are emotional, you can channel that emotion very easily. They've studied mob psychology. And so think of it for a moment. October 7th happens, and we have 1,400 Jews killed, and the whole world is filled full of emotion. Give them a month. They channel all that emotion back at Israel. So Israel is blamed for the attack on Israel. And so you look at Charlie Kirk getting killed. Give them a month. They've channeled all that in energy back to blaming Turning Point for Charlie's killing. It's like, who would have thought this? They're brilliant at it. And so this idea, the PSYOPs, these psychological operations. I talked to a former military PSYOPs person, and I said, well, now explain to me some of the examples. And he goes, okay, we were over in Afghanistan, and there was this imam that was causing us problems. And if we would have killed him, the Muslims would have risen up and attacked us. So we had a parade starting in the middle of town with loudspeakers praising this imam for helping the Americans under the table. And we're going through the streets with loudspeakers saying this, and they lay a basket of fruit on the imam's front door. And he says, by the time we got back to the base, that problem was taken care of. I said, what do you mean? He goes, his own people killed him. They believed the PSYOP. So this enemy of the United States, right? They swayed the people to blame him. And so it's the PSYOPs was used during World War II. That we dropped pamphlets on, German occupied cities that would, in their own language, that would say your side is already lost. Your boss just hasn't told you yet. And they would read it and say, why are we out here fighting? I read we were already lost. It would mess with their minds. And then the Japanese did it to us with Tokyo Rose. She was a woman with a seductive voice on the radio, and the radio waves would go across to our ships, and she would say, you Americans are terrible, and you're doing this terrible, that terrible, and it would demoralize our guys. And in the Bible, you can begin to see this over and over. 12 spies go into the promised land. 10 come back with a negative report. There are giants in the land. We're grasshoppers. The land devours the inhabitants thereof. Let's stone Moses and go back to Egypt. And so the 10 spies spread a negative report. They sowed division. It was demoralizing, disheartening. And, Joshua and Caleb stood up. But this idea that they lost before they ever got to the battlefield. They were defeated in their mind. And so that's the tactic is if you're wanting to take over a country and you have a really strong group of people that are motivated to get involved and save the country. What was Charlie's message? Go back to church, get married, have kids, and save the country. And Charlie thought politics. I mean, I had a chance to visit with Brooke Collins, the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. And she said that Charlie Kirk was in her office so much and that he would suggest this person for this position and that person for that position. And she said a lot of people are in their positions because Charlie, I mean, here's a guy that was, maybe 30. He was amazing. But he thought politics.
So you believe, Charlie, so you believe, Bill, that all this division and accusations and crazy talk on social media, it's being deliberately done to divide this movement. The question is, who is doing it? Are they doing it on their own? Is it Iran?
No, it's the deep state.
The deep state?
Trump has been trying to fire him.
Russia or China involved at all?
I would think so because they're globalist.
But you think some of these people are paid? You think some of these folks are being paid to do this?
I think Obama put into federal positions lots of people that have a Democrat ideology, and they're forever anti-Trumpers, and so when a new president comes in, he can only fire 10% of them. I mean, it's the law. So unionizing. We just recently had a vote in Congress, and 13 Republicans joined the Democrats regarding unionized federal employees. And it doesn't sound like that much, but there's what's called the SES, Senior Executive Service, and it's a union of all the top people in every federal agency. Department of Homeland Security, Department of all the top people and all those belong to this union. And a new president, by law, can only fire 10% of them. And so Obama and Biden shoved into this union lots of leftist ideological people. And Trump's trying to get his agenda, but it's like pushing. One time I visited with John Ashcroft, and he said it was like pushing a rope. He says he could appoint his right-hand man and maybe a couple people that are assistants to him. But then when you get to the second tier and the third tier, they would just let it sit on their desk. And when they would finally say, get it done, they would just put it on the other guy's desk. And then when they would finally say, get it done, they would put it on and they have a term for it. It's called slow walking. And and so their goal is to drag it out for 4 years so it never gets implemented.
Okay, there we are. Drag it out for 4 years, and that's where we're at. That's where we're at. But I want to ask you in closing, do you believe some of these people are being paid to do this division, distraction, to divide the camp? Are they being paid?
Well, I would think that some of the social media people, they're financially benefiting from the attack because they're getting views. And for their point of view, from someone that does a lot, they think if they can get views and clicks, it's got to be good. And so they don't. It's controversy media. They want to talk about controversial things because it gets views. Not asking the question, is this going to help or hurt the midterms?
And what does it say about our society and the conservative movement that's what they're interested in? I said to my wife last night, I said, the fact that people watch these programs and they have so many viewers tells you just how, again, we're living in a culture where the adults, most of the adults in America are juveniles. I'm telling you, the number of adults that we personally know of in our own area, they live for the next vacation. They live for the next trip. They're deeply in debt, spending money they don't have. Many of them have a drinking problem. And I'm like, this is no different than junior high. So what does this say about the conservative MAGA movement or America First movement? Are people, the percentage in this movement that watch these people I mean, I don't think they have the spiritual and intellectual wherewithal to bring real solutions to the country because I don't think they're mature enough. They can handle an inch deep and a mile wide, but they're not mature enough to handle the information we bring. And that's why we never, ever built this network on population, on numbers. We always built it on deep content, biblical worldview, theology, doctrine, national security, history. Because if they're not thinkers and they're not readers, they're not leaders. And in addition to that, if you think you're going to sustain a network built on a bunch of juvenile adults that are looking for controversial TV, rage programming, rage podcasts, your organization will go belly up. We don't need the biggest audience. We just need an audience of highly educated and mature and spiritually mature adults. And our organization just does great with that because we've never marketed to the masses. We were specifically trying to train biblical worldview people and leaders. But what do you think? I go back to the question. What do you think it says about the movement of MAGA? I'm not sure the movement of MAGA is made up of enough intellectually competent, mature, self-controlled people to actually go beyond rallies and slogans. And you and I both know rallies and slogans will not fix our country's problems.
Yeah, so controversy sells. You remember Phil Donahue? I mean, he would put they'd wanted these couples to fight on TV, right? Because it sells.
Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer, there you go. And England had the royal family, and it was like people want to get into the controversies of the royal family, right? And so it is. But the question is always to be asked: will it help or hurt the midterms? Is it going to mobilize people to get out and campaign to win the midterms, or is it going to take that energy that Charlie Kirk had built and diffuse it into infighting and actually blaming the very people that were hurt for participating in the killing? It's like Israel is blaming Israel for Israel being attacked. In Islam, if they rape a woman, it's the woman's fault for allowing herself to be used as a tool of Satan to tempt the man. I mean, who would have think that you could blame the woman who's been the victim of rape and then she gets whipped 100 times? So this whole concept, it's in the Bible. It's called projection. Potiphar's wife accused Joseph of lusting after her when she was lusting after him. All right. So you accuse your opponent of what you're guilty of. But these are tactics that need to be explained so that people can identify them.
100%.
And if the easy question is it going to, how's it going to affect the midterms?
Yeah.
The Democrats are laser focused on winning the midterms.
Yep.
And psychological operations have been used for 50 years. They call them color revolutions, and they've been used by the CIA and the KGB to overthrow governments. And so this is only different because it's being used against us. These are deep state people. I started to get into that SES, Senior Executive Service. Trump's been trying to fire people.
Yeah.
And every time he does, they say, no, you can't fire him. And so once they're not fired, what are they doing? They're working behind his back. They're
by the way, the
leaking
color
stuff.
revolution was because the CIA would put people into groups and mark them with a color. You're this color, that color. And then they would pit those colors against each other, right?
Yeah. James Lindsay is the best one to explain it. But China, they had the reds and the blacks. And so then they began to paint the one as bad. And then the other was the one that got all the favors. And people would even turn in their own kids to be killed so that they could switch from one color to the next to show their loyalty to the CCP. And so your goal is you want a radical left and a radical right and pit them against each other so that there'll be division. And then in the confusion, you want to channel that emotion to blaming somebody, and you want to blame your opponent for the division. I mean, if they can get boys to think they're girls, if they can get the whole entire world to inject something into their body that they don't know what's in it, if they can, the power of psychological, it's marketing, but the power, and they can individualize it now. So the University of Zurich did a study on Reddit users a website where you post questions and answers. And they built a profile on every user. And they found out that bots, B-O-T-S, bots were 6 times more effective at getting people to change their opinions than humans are.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So they study you and they know you. I mean, here, there's stories where they call it sex torting. So, a teenage kid comes home from football practice. He just finished his dinner. It's a true story. And he pulls his phone out, and they had like an AI generated image of him doing something sexual. I don't know. And then they said they're going to send it to every one of his friends on his list unless he pays money, and he doesn't have money. He has $30. They said, no, you got to pay $300. And it's like 150 texts within the next 3 hours. And then the kid committed suicide. The power they have. And now with Chat GPT, this one, it was a Christian family, and the mother, the son committed suicide. Like, what? And she looks on his phone, and there's all these texts with Chat GPT. And it's saying, I'll see you on the other side. And, you're doing the right thing. And I mean, it was encouraging him to kill himself. The power that this has, but it's used on the public. And so they censor, and then you get unwitting influencers who are just interested in clicks and views. And you without doing the research and saying, okay, this is going to take a little time. And then, they just throw out, today, this is my thought. I'm going to blame so-and-so. Today, this is what, and somebody is feeding them these ideas. And so but their goal is division.
Division.
Blaming the victim for the attack. But the goal is midterms.
Wow. Our goal is
Democrats
midterms.
are laser focused on midterms. They want to diffuse all the conservative youth energy into endless rabbit trails. The goal is to diffuse the energy, but to steal the midterms.
And then, of course, people get confused, they get disappointed. It becomes so much drama that they just walk away, throw their hands up, and they quit, and they sit on the sideline. And so
it's like a divorce.
Exactly right. We got to go, but I know we need to get you back.
I like both sides, so I'm just going to not communicate with either of them. I'm just going to back away.
Wow. We got to get you back. It's such a deep topic, but it's so important. Propaganda, brainwashing, and how a lot of the drama we're seeing on social media may very well be orchestrated by the deep state to stop the midterms from being successful and to derail the real America First movement. Wow. Bill Federer, AmericanMinute.com. Our clips, by the way, that we put out of our interviews always get big response. So people love this kind of stuff. But that's because we don't have a shallow adult audience of juvenile thinking adults. They're a deep thinking, mature, want to learn, want to read, want to study audience. And that's why they love our program, our network, interviews with you. And that's why those clips do well, because our people are readers and leaders, and you're catering right to them. So thank you, Bill, at AmericanMinute.com. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. And all this information is in a book on socialism if they want to buy it.
What's it called?
It's called Socialism, the Real History from Plato to the Present. I'm writing another book, but that's the one that has some of the content.
And it's at AmericanMinute.com, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill. All right. Great interview with Bill. All right. It's getting late. We'll do the Aaron tours another night this week. Hey, don't forget about going to worldviewfoundation.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. We really need your end of the year support. Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. Okay. You'll find our mailing address there. You can donate by credit card, PayPal, mail, and then, of course, phone. Leave a message for Melissa or text her. She'll get back to you, help you make that contribution. We'll send you a tax receipt with our EIN number. Well, EIN number will be on there on the tax receipt. We'll send it out by the end of January. Go to the Dolly Cam real quick. Let's call it a night. Sleeping Beauty. Hey, you want to go outside? Go outside, go potty? Dolly, go outside? Oh, wow. I guess I need to check on her. All right. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
Welcome to the broadcast, guys. Glad you're with us. Here we are after a very, very sad weekend in so many ways. What a weekend. I almost came on the air over the weekend, but I thought, no, I'm just going to wait for Monday. I was busy studying for part 4, the final part of Why I'm a Christian Zionist. That was last night. We are going to turn that into a book now, by the way. But of course, we had the slaughter of what is now, 16 folks, many of them Jewish, celebrating Hanukkah by the sea in Australia. We're going to be joined here in just one moment by Aaron Lavarco. Aaron, he's got family that lives in Australia. This was basically Australia's October 7th. Apparently, it was a father and son jihadist Islamic terrorist attack. And many of you by now have seen the video. Maybe you're hearing some of the stories. I have collected a lot of them that I'm going to play tonight for Brandon House Live. One story is of a little 10-year-old girl, little Jewish girl, getting her face painted, laughing, playing with her sibling, dead. Another is a woman who shielded a 3-year-old child with her own body. The parents in the mayhem lost track of her, only to find her with this woman who did not know her and shielded this child with her own body. Apparently, the lady had blood on her. The child had blood on itself. And the parents were concerned that the child had been shot. And the woman said, no, don't worry, that's my blood. They, of course, grabbed the woman's phone number and gave an interview. I'll play that clip tonight. Then we have the incident at Brown University, where we have at least 2 students that were killed there, many others wounded, who were preparing for an exam. Someone was arrested, then let go. They're still looking for the gunman, who supposedly shouted something. What do you think he shouted? Merry Christmas? Happy Hanukkah? What do you think he shouted? I can only guess because I don't know. But if they know he shouted something, why don't they tell us what he was shouting? Could it be because it doesn't fit the political correct narrative of today? And then we have the murder of Rob Reiner and his wife. Now, I'm going to make a comment here because I told you guys I am not a political shill. I'm not a political mouthpiece for anybody. Rob Reiner did not hold to views that most of us in this audience hold to when it comes to many things politically, maybe even social values. Apparently, he comes from a Jewish background. I had read that at one time he was an atheist, but I watched a video where he said he follows the teachings of Jesus. So I don't know what all this means. I don't know where he was at spiritually. I pray he knew the Lord. I don't know. I haven't delved into Rob Reiner's life enough to know where he was at the last few years.